A New York judge ruled Tuesday that Donald Trump committed fraud against banks and insurers as he built his sprawling real estate empire. Judge Arthur Engoron presided over the civil case that Attorney General Letitia James brought against the ex-president. He also rejected Trump's plea to throw out the case and ordered some of his companies be removed from his control.
With Engoron's stunning ruling on Tuesday, AG James seems to have scored a victory before her trial against Trump even started. The trial is set to begin next Monday and will spotlight damages that could further decimate Trump's business entities and bank accounts. Trump took to Truth Social, blasting the decision, calling it un-American, saying it's a, quote, very sad day for the New York State system of justice. Here to delve into this further is Jim Zirin, lawyer, former federal prosecutor, and talk show host of Conversations with Jim Zirin. Thank you for joining us.
Well, it's Jim Zirin, but
Zirin, my apologies.
You got it right.
My apologies. Jim Zirin, thank you so much. Remind us what the broader implications of this particular New York case are. We've been so in the weeds with the Georgia case and the documents case. What is he being charged with here?
Well, first, this is a civil case, and he's charged by the Attorney General of the state of New York with business fraud, a consistent pattern of fraud, which existed over a period of years. And the outcome is not that he would be imprisoned, but the outcome is that he might have to pay a great deal of money.
How much money are we looking at here?
I think really the damages have to be assessed at the trial, which will occur later. I think the trial will start next week. But there was a finding of fraud, and one of the remedies might be that Trump has to disgorge all of his profits from this illegal pattern of conduct, which could amount to hundreds of millions of dollars.
What does it mean? Why were you in a situation where there was this pre-trial finding of fraud to begin with?
Well, this is a motion that the Attorney General made for summary judgment. This is a documents case, and there really is no disputed issue of fact to be left for a trial. The documents show that Trump consistently overstated his real estate assets in order to obtain bank loans and in order to obtain insurance coverage. Because he overstated his net worth, which he did all the time for publicity, he was able to get more favorable bank rates and more favorable insurance rates.
Yeah, some of the examples of that were pretty extraordinary. The judge apparently determined that Mr. Trump overvalued Mar-a-Lago by 2,300% in one financial statement, overvalued his penthouse at Trump Tower in New York City by claiming that it was 3 times its actual size. Absurdly, that's from the court, argued that calculating the area of the penthouse was subjective, ruling a discrepancy of this order of magnitude by a real estate developer sizing up his own living space of decades can only be considered to be fraud. Given the nature of the court's ruling here, it is a little surprising that it's surprising at all, given the kind of nature and kind of exaggerated nature of this fraud, no?
It is exaggerated. Trump seems to think that the square footage of his apartment is a subjective matter rather than an objective matter. Objective because you can measure it. And if you measure it, you find that it is a third of the size that Trump said it was. So there's a fraud right there. With respect to Mar-a-Lago, which he claims is worth $1 billion to $1.5 billion, he only paid $500,000 in taxes on it last year. And Mar-a-Lago is subject to various legal restrictions because he turned it over. He told the town of Palm Beach that it would be used as a club, and he turned it over to the local government for that purpose. He took the position that because the restrictions could be removed at any time because he could bring litigation to remove them. But the fact is the restrictions were there, and the judge did not make his own finding as to the true valuation of Mar-a-Lago. He simply took the figure that was advanced by the town of Palm Beach appraiser.
And while all this is going on, Trump is also, of course, facing prosecution in a federal criminal case levied against him for his role in the January 6th Capitol riot. Per the New York Times, the federal prosecutor leading that case, Jack Smith, asked the judge to issue a narrow gag order to block Trump from maligning participants in the case, which the former president has repeatedly done online. In response, Trump's legal team is accusing Smith and his team, as well as the Biden administration, of trying to silence Biden's, quote, most prominent political opponent. Obviously, President Trump, as you've just discussed, is somebody who may have a penchant for exaggerations. He's somebody who frequently discusses things happening around him and to him on Truth Social and elsewhere. How big of a deal is this going to be for Trump as he looks toward the 2024 election?
Well, that remains to be seen. He seems to have a solid coterie of supporters who have bought his argument that this whole thing is a political persecution. But the facts don't lie, and the law has been there, and Trump is subject to the rule of law like anyone else. And I am very confident that the Washington case will be brought to trial on March 2nd when it's been scheduled, if not before, because of Trump's extrajudicial statements about the judge and about others, which might intimidate witnesses. And the trial will occur in Washington. And if the jury returns a conviction, a verdict of conviction, I don't see how Trump can run for president. And of course, there are the other cases, and they will unfold in due course. But the important case is the Washington case, which alleges 3 conspiracies arising out of January 6th and the events of January 6th. And it's those cases that will be decided first.
Jim, let me ask you about this question of people who believe this is a political prosecution. Going back to the New York case, it seems obvious that on the basis of the documents, as you explained, that there was fraud perpetrated here. But I think the question is going to arise in people's minds. If there's this obvious fraud, why is it only now that these charges are being brought? Why not in 2016, if Democrats really didn't want him to win, to then not try to pursue these kinds of legal avenues to threaten or coerce him? Why not while he was president of the United States? I mean, why now is the question that people who are sympathetic to Trump are going to ask, even if they agree that the underlying fraud seems quite apparent.
Well, first, it was a long investigation, and it required a great deal of research and time in order to get the goods on him, because as the judge said in his opinion, this is a documents case. So the documents had to be reviewed and analyzed, and that took time. The case was not brought to prevent Trump from being president. The case was brought because Trump committed a pervasive business fraud in the state of New York. And the Attorney General has the authority to bring an action, to enjoin such conduct, to revoke the license of such a corporation or entity or any entities that are engaged in such conduct, and that's what the judge did here.
Isn't there an argument, conservatives have been making, that Letitia James, as part of her race, ran on convicting Trump, really made this a part of her personal image, and that's part of why there's this credibility question where people are unwilling to see what she's doing as anything other than a political prosecution? Do you think it was wise to frame one's own political agenda as targeting Donald Trump, not just for perhaps his genuine illegal activity, but because of his politics?
Well, if I were advising her on her campaign, I would have not advised her to run for office on that plank. That said, once she became Attorney General, she took an oath and to fairly execute and carry out and enforce the law. And I think that's what she did. The facts are there. They speak for themselves. The judge now, who is a disinterested party, who did not run on a plank of getting Donald Trump, made the decision he made. Undoubtedly, Trump will appeal. And if the decision is upheld by the appellate court, as I expect it will be, it really cannot be argued this is a political prosecution of any kind.
Thank you so much for joining us and unpacking this case with us.
I'm delighted to help you.